In order to make this dress, we're going to start with a onesie, and you can use the size that you need depending on the size child you're making it for. This one is a 3 to 6 months. They look so long. But anyway, I've chose a long sleeve one because I think I'll give this one to my grandbaby, and it's getting cooler weather. So anyway, and then you're going to need, I have a little bit more than that here, but it's been cut. You're going to need about a yard of fabric, and you probably won't use an entire yard, but you know, in case you make a boo-boo or anything, you want to get a yard at least, and it would be fabric that's folded and it's at the very least 45 inches, because you're going to need to use as much of that as you can. So what I'm going to do is press my fabric. I'll do that off camera, and then I'm going to come back and show you what you need to cut and how you need to cut everything. The first thing I want to do before I start sewing, obviously, is we want to cut the onesie. You could try to do this and leave this piece on, but just my thought was to make some little bloomer pants to go under the little dress I'm going to make. So I'm going to cut mine off, and I want to start by figuring out where I want to cut at, and I'm going to kind of measure down that. And I'm going to cut about 1.5 inches down. I'm not going to use a whole lot of this onesie. I just want it from the top piece. And what I'm doing is right there at that, yeah, that'd be a little off if I don't do that. Right there at that underarm seam, right here, I'm marking down 1.5 inches. You can barely see my marks here, but I don't want them to show too much anyway, so I'm going to make an additional mark just to make sure. And this is a fabric pencil, so it washes out pretty easy, but in the end this mark isn't going to show anyway. So the next thing I want to do is follow in those marks. Cutting very carefully. I'm going to cut that off, and you can save this piece. I am working on a project to show you to do with this piece, and since this is so long, I'm thinking maybe a petty romper or something like that, but we'll just see later. So don't throw your pieces away. They're totally usable, that bottom piece. So now we've got our little piece here, and we're just going to take it and set it aside. What I'm going to do is, this is the fold of the fabric right here, and I folded it even though I hate to do that. I feel like it's so wasteful. But what I'm going to do is, from the fold, I'm going to measure 15 inches, and I'm going to mark it off. I'm just going to go down a little bit and mark it in different places so that I have a line to work with. The top of my fabric is uneven, so what you're seeing me do now is I'm just cutting a little bit off to even it up. I don't want a crooked line. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is trace those lines I made all the way to the top. Now I want to mark it down from the top of the fabric to about, you don't need a whole lot for a baby dress, so I'm thinking even with the hem, I practiced this a couple of times, so hopefully I've got it right now. I'm doing about 10.5 inches down, and what we're doing here is making the skirt piece. I don't even know if I told y'all that. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But I'm going to mark this going all the way down so that I'll have a reference point to make a line so that I can cut it. And I'm doing it 30 inches, and I know that seems like a lot, but in experimenting with this pattern, anything any less is not enough when you do the gather. It doesn't go around all the way around the outfit enough. So Now I can barely see those lines. Okay, now I'm going to trace this line around the bottom. And remember that I am cutting on the fold. This is the fold right here. So I just want to cut this skirt piece out. And I found that I just like to work from the wrong side of the fabric, especially if I'm tracing, drawing on it. Even if it's washable, there's no chance of it really showing. So I'm going to put that aside. The next thing we're going to do is make the little band. It's going to be kind of like a faux band on this dress to make it look like the bow is tied, but it's not really going to be tied. And at the end of the video, I'll show how to cut the pieces to make the bow. I'm just doing the dress right now. We're going to concentrate on that so that you don't get confused with everything. Okay, this line is straight because I just used it to cut out my skirt piece. So now what I want to do is I really don't think I need any more than 2.5 inches in my experimental ones that I made. I made them thicker and it just didn't have the right fit. So from the top, I'm measuring 2.5 inches and making my mark. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it at 30 inches, even though I'm not going to need that band to be 30 inches because the dress part, the skirt part of the dress is going to be gathered. But I have not worked much with using my gathering foot to do a flat piece and a gathered piece, but I'm going to try that in this video. I should have experimented with that first, but I'll have some salvage of this left over and I'll just clip it when I'm done because I don't want to guesstimate on how much I'm going to need. So I'm going to cut it the exact length of the skirt piece, which would be 30 inches or 15 inches on the fold. And again, this is the band that's going to, kind of make it look like it's tied in a bow. Like it's got a little band or a little belt around it. Okay, so this is our skirt piece, and this 10.5 inches might actually be kind of long, but I can still work with it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my little creases out of this, and then I'm going to take it to the machine, and I will do that on camera. I'll show you. We'll just see if it works. Okay, I think the first thing I want to do, just because it seems to work out better for me, is I'm going to go ahead and make the hemline of this skirt. And then I'm going to press that over on itself. I have a really hard time with hems, to be honest. I just always tried to avoid them. When I had my machine that I could do the tight zigzag, I would just make like a ragged edge hem with the tight zigzag stitch, and it always looked better. But for this, I'm going to do this, and what I'm going to do is just take it over to the machine and sew right down the middle of that where I pressed, and I'll already have my hemline ready to go. Okay. I've put the camera over to my right side, so hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm going to do here with this gathering. Look, Margie, I did learn to snap them off there. I was taking the whole little ankle right here off, and just a bunch of mess. Okay, if you watched my video on how to use this gathering foot, you know the first time I used it, I had it backwards. It goes like this, and you just snap it on there. It's got actually a little piece that juts out that kind of gives you that guide. Now what I am going to try to do is lay the band piece on top, and it's got a little groove to feed it through, and the skirt piece on the bottom, and hopefully the skirt piece gathers and the band piece doesn't. What I'm going to do is turn my tension down to about 5.5, 4.5, I guess, because it's closer to that. I'm going to turn it up to only 5 because I don't want a really tight gather. And then with right sides together, this is the right side of the skirt piece, and this will be the right side of the band. And I'm going to start, get my shit together first. I'm trying to line them up there, and I'm going to, yeah, this is going to be tricky. I haven't, like I said, I've only tried this a couple of times, and it just drove me batshit, but I want to do it this way because the first couple of dresses I made like this, I had a lot of trouble with that gather and sewing the band on top of it. So let's just see how this works.